Okay, the Riverside Brookfield Education Foundation.
Kevin had said this would only be 5 minutes. Thank you, Gary. I'm missing Dancing with the Stars. Or loses. The Riverside Brookfield Educational Foundation, referred to as the RBEF, was founded and incorporated in 1987 under the direction of then Superintendent Charles LaCrone and 4 residents of the district. It is a nonprofit volunteer organization independent of the school district and directed by a board of trustees who serve without compensation. Since that time, the RBF has been served by numerous individuals as trustees. And on our letterhead, it does show the numerous people who have served over the years. And this is an older one, so we do have more. So there's been a number of people who have served in this capacity. The mission statement of the RBEF reads as follows. It shall be the mission of this foundation to provide funds for student and staff programs and activities designed to promote educational excellence, which are supplemental to normal school budgetary and operational functions. It shall be the policy of this foundation to make grants only to programs and activities of Riverside Brookfield High School that can be identified directly or indirectly as part of or in support of the high school instructional and co-curricular program. The RBEF's major source of fundraising is the telethon, which began in 1989 in cooperation with the Library Media Services and Mrs. Dawn Heller. In its first year, the telethon was awarded the John Cotton Dana Library Public Relations Award. At the time, it was the only high school in the country to receive such a prestigious award. Support for this telethon comes from the many students, faculty, support staff, parents, alumni, and community members who wish to add their support to the RBEF. Following the telethon, the process of awarding grants takes place. Students, faculty, and staff obtain grant applications, which, after having been completed and turned in by the deadline so noted, are reviewed by the Board of Trustees. We have 2 separate forms, one for faculty and staff and one for students, and it's available on our website. One of the things that I have always felt was important, particularly for the students, that filling out this grant form was an educational process, and much will be learned by it. And we do look at everything very carefully in order to make our determination as to who receives grants. All applications are considered. Through the awarding of grants, students, faculty, and staff have been able to attend dance workshops, music programs and trips, various educational camps and conferences. Recently, the artist in resident was supported partly by the foundation. The foundation has also purchased equipment that has been needed to further educational opportunities or programs that benefit student body, such as guest lecturers. Grants are given or mailed to recipients, with scholarships being presented at the local scholarship ceremony. The foundation also serves as trustee of restricted funds, which have been earmarked that we distribute within the stipulated guidelines of the agreements. The foundation meets monthly unless otherwise needed and welcomes visitors at any time and suggestions. We are currently updating our website and our brochures, and I think Principal Bilesma has received some things where she has a list of our recipients over the past year or 2. We had also hoped that David Newman, who was our past treasurer and an attorney who serves as a capacity as an advisor for us, but he's at Drury Lane seeing Hairspray. I don't know why he thought that was more important, but he did. It's my husband and my anniversary tonight, and Dave is out celebrating, so I hope we're having a good time, Dave. That basically is it. We are updating, this is our last brochure, we're updating it. We are updating our website so that there will be more information on it. We believe that the foundation plays a very important part in the school, even though we are an independent organization, not on the same road as, say, music sponsors or patron council or boosters. So in trying to keep to the 5 minutes that you said, I think for me that's pretty good.
That's pretty good. Do you want to introduce Tony, or?
With me here is Tony Mazio, who is the new treasurer, and Mary Summers, our very able, capable, and wonderful secretary.
Any questions?
Sorry, Mary, I didn't.
Okay.
Any questions?
Well, do you only service RB, or is the foundation?
We are strictly RB students, staff, and faculty. So, and it's our pleasure to do that.
One question that did come up that spurred me to have that meeting with all the groups was that historically, and Joanne was even having trouble recall when it started, but if you made a certain donation to the telethon, I think it was $35, you got an activity pass. And then what we've witnessed over time is that at first I think that activity pass that you got from the telethon was supposed to be just for concerts or plays, and then people started to use it for sporting events. And it was crossing lines with the boosters who were saying, well, ours is 50 and you're getting sporting events. And that's what kind of spurred some of the questions, I think, from the board and the administration of, for 35 or 50, people are getting in free. And then, so we also talked with the Patrons Council. Is that something that we definitely need to address, or similar to the boosters, if they give a donation to the telethon, maybe they can get a pass that would give them reduced rates into some of those events instead of the free admittance. So we discussed that with them, as well as working with the Booster Club.
Yeah, I think through our meeting the other night, I think the consensus was that we're going to try and remedy that situation to the benefit of all, in particular the school.
Right.
And, you know, I will add in, there was a time when the foundation was on a hiatus due to no support through the then superintendent. And so when it was reactivated, Dave Newman contacted me and said, you know, there is money there, let's get it going again. So I don't know at what point those passes came in, but it just picked up.
I think it was evident that our foundation is on board with working with the administration to come up with a solution.
Our officers are president, vice president, which currently there's a vacancy, treasurer and secretary, and then we have currently 6 active trustees, and we've had as many as 12, including the board of directors and the trustees.
Any other questions?
I do have one more. So, Joanne, I remember when my kids were in school, if you did make the donation at the telethon, you did get that pass. And at that time, it was clear you didn't get into the sporting events, but you did get into like the musical or concerts. And then that money, you know, the money donation was to the foundation, and the foundation, you know, granted it as it pleased. So as we go forward and we're going to talk about it, could you share with us what arrangements that you've discussed with the school regarding that pass?
Well, I think Kevin pretty well said what it is. We're trying to make something workable that it's not going to infringe one group infringing on the other. It's possible that we may not, as a foundation, even have the passes, or we may put something in place that's different. But our main concern is not to infringe upon another organization's money-making and to infringe upon the school's ability to generate some income.
One thing that was identified was that, I think Laura's correct, in the original intent of the pass was more focused on the fine arts, and that with some of the things that we're talking about bringing back next year in development of that with the Finance Council and some of those things, we've eliminated board-funded accounts. For example, if we have a the board approved last month, pay to participate in having a spring musical. there'll be no board-funded accounts, so will strictly fund their playwrights, their sets, and their costumes on their gate receipts. And so what we have to be cautious of is that we're not offering free admittance to something where these are going to be self-funded programs now. So we had talked about that, possibly doing a reduced fund, also talking about maybe every year the school administration would do a grant application to try to get something back from a donation back from the RBEF that would help the general school population, something maybe in regards to the library or to a speaker for the entire school to help offset some of those costs. So those were some of the things that we discussed at our meeting last week.
Yeah, and we're very open as a foundation. I think I had mentioned that at one time we did bring a speaker in, and it was an all-school assembly, and I don't remember what the speaker was, but it was something that the interest was generated by the administration to have this program.
So
Any other questions?
Yeah, so then I'd like a follow-up, because Joanne, we don't want you here to midnight or whatever. As a parent, when we'd make the donation, of course, my daughter's always wanted the facilities thing, but then beyond that, and I remember working, the telethon, and that $30 donation was something that parents felt comfortable with. It was like a modest donation, and you got entry into plays or whatever. So if we discuss going forward and not doing the gate admittance or something, is the foundation comfortable with that, or do you want us to hold that in consideration, or do you got a plan in mind?
I think, just based on our discussion the other night, that we are open to any suggestions on this, and I don't feel that we'll be that affected if we are not allowed to have the pass as we've had it in the past. Because anybody who donated $35 or above automatically got this pass. How many of them are used, we never know.
Right.
So, like I said, our main thrust is to follow our mission and to be able to give back to the students, faculty, staff, and the school through the money we generate through the telethon. So, we might come up with some other little hokey, cheesy giveaway that'll be very enticing to someone.
Any other questions?
Is it an organization that operates off of bylaws?
Yes.
Okay. And you said your meetings are every month. Is it a specific day of the month?
We try and do it on the third Wednesday of the month, and also have meetings as needed. Sometimes we don't have a meeting. If there is actually, during the holidays, we may forego having a meeting because there is no business. Sometimes we will have more than one meeting if there is a specific reason. If we're coming close to telethon time, we need to meet more often.
And where are the meetings held at? Are they in the building?
For the most part, they're in the building, and I must admit, I call it the room with all the windows downstairs, but I know it must have a real name, Marianne?
It's the guidance conference from student services.
Yes, I call it the room with all the windows.
There.
College and Career Center.
Okay, I guess that does sound a little better than the room with all the windows.
And I know you mentioned you have a website. Would you tell us
Yes.
what the website is so people
Yeah,
at home
and
can-
we're currently redoing that. Corinna Conscious is working on that. It's www.rbef.tv.
Okay, and that can be linked through the school's website?
You can just go right through it. Is that correct, Tom?
You can go directly to it, or it can be linked through
And then I guess I have a little confusion about what kind of status does the foundation have?
Okay, Tony,
And
would you like to?
I see Tony moving up.
Yes.
Tony, you can pull a chair up, Tony. You don't even have to kneel.
Come and sit on my lap, Tony, and we'll talk about it.
It's your anniversary today.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and Tony's sitting on my lap.
Because basically, when you start looking at an organization, you can go to guidestar.org, and I have, the last 6 filings that you did, and in each one of the filings, it indicates that your organization is a 501c4, and when I go to the instructions, this sentence jumps out that says, contributions to civic leagues and other 501c4 organizations generally are not deductible as charitable contributions for federal income tax purposes. And when I'm looking at the filings, for future reference, each one of these say you don't have a website. So I happened to go through that at the school, and I found that on the website, on your homepage, it says you're a 501c3 organization. Can you shed a little light on that?
We are a 501c3.
Yeah.
In fact, one of the pieces of information I passed on to Superintendent Skinkus was our letter ruling from the IRS from 1992.
Okay.
Verifying our status as a 501c3.
And it says, when you applied, do you know if you applied as a 501c3 or
1988.
are you being recognized as a foundation that is described in 501c3?
We applied for 501c3 status, and we
Okay.
received our letter ruling, non-probationary, in 1992.
Okay, and do you have that application available?
I would have to dig through the archives. I'm sure it's available.
And I guess some of the other questions that we're asking are you planning to put any of that on your website?
Yes.
Either your checkbook, your 990s, your 501c3.
We're going to put as
letter.
much of that information on there as we possibly can.
Yeah.
We need to deal with grant recipients with tender loving care because they are minors.
Yeah.
And we need to make sure that we're protective of their personal information.
Yeah, certainly. Because when I look at these filings for future reference, if I wasn't mistaken, I would think this is some kind of CIA company because everywhere you look in here, it's, it doesn't lead me to anywhere. Your website has the address of the school. Your website has the phone number of the school. Your filing says no website. And your little sentence in the back says no documents available to the public. So it's like screaming at me that, this is something that is a hidden,
You're going to see a lot of changes.
Okay.
The status of the 990s, we were relying on the expertise of a local CPA to prepare our 990s for us. And unbeknownst to the board members at the time, he was checking off the wrong number, that it was a 4 rather than a 3. We have a letter of understanding from the accountant that this was done in error, and we will take corrective steps to correct the past 990s.
Number of members of the voting body, blank. And then some of the questions actually ask, are you a 501c3? No. Then you don't have to answer any further questions.
I can only speak for the organization from the time I've taken over. You will see a lot of different. It is filed as a 501c3 with the IRS, with NCSS. There are absolutely no issues there whatsoever. All of the forms were, again, filed with the understanding that they were being done properly and effectively.
And this is the same accountant that we've had for years.
For a lot of years.
So, however this mistake came up, we don't know.
Okay. Again, like I said previously, we want to make sure that organizations, specifically ones that use Riverside Brookfield High School in their name are being, following the rules as best as possible and that type of thing. And working towards going to the future. This is some of the things that the organization's going to do is correct that and
Oh, absolutely.
and go
Yeah,
for
that's
transparency
been
done.
and posting as much information as if I can understand what you're saying.
What's your timeline for that?
We're in the process right now of updating the website, and I've
So
made
you
it my
have a deadline, or do you-
I've made it my priority number one to update it as quickly as we possibly can to have that level of transparency that everybody expects.
So what date are you targeting to have this all done?
We're going to have an update at our next board meeting in
Well,
May.
Probably really not until, it'll start in May, but more so in June, because right now we're going through the grant reading process. And that's our priority in getting those out.
You mentioned restricted funds. Can you just expand a little bit about,
Oh.
you have donations that come in that are restricted?
We have, the foundation has been given the ability to serve as trustee for certain amounts of money. We have, I'll use in the Otto Hawk agreement. We have a paper, an agreement with the heirs, and we manage that fund, and we give out the scholarship as stipulated by the by those who gave us that power.
Specifically, they were estate bequests
Yeah.
upon these people's death. And they were very specific with what the intent was for the money,
Yeah.
how it was supposed to be utilized, and all 4 of these special requests were set up as endowment-type restricted gifts, where the goal was to earn enough in interest earnings, assuming a very short-term investment horizon, to provide enough money to provide a specific amount for that particular grant on an annual basis.
If you look over the last 6 years, you went from a cash balance of like 50,000 and you're sitting as of, mid-2011 is 140,000, 130,000. Is that the result of holding the endowment money? Or?
Yes, I think that's an accumulation of those endowments.
Okay, so whenever you get around to showing us what it is, you'll have separated
Absolutely.
what's beyond your control and what you're holding on that's been donated?
Our general account checking balance is, after the fundraiser, approximately $14,000. We'll use 90 to 95% of that as grant money for this year's grant recipients. We hold on to a minimal cash balance over the course of the remainder of the year to cover any operating expenses or printing costs that we may have, just to hold us over until we actually go through the next fundraiser.
And then what is the process of like I asked the boosters, what's the process for determining who gets grants?
Okay, after we have received a grant, whether it be from a faculty or staff or student, we go through and see that they have done all that they were supposed to do. We've received some grants where they have not filled out the application correctly, and therefore we can't consider it. If there is information that is missing, if there is endorsements that are not there, if the program or the request is not valid and within our parameters, then we don't consider it. We don't handle any athletic things. We don't handle any private requests, whereas we might get someone requesting private music lessons or something. We don't do that.
Do you fulfill 100% of your post, after you determine who did everything correctly, do you fulfill 100%?
We would like to, but when some of them are requesting thousands of dollars, it's kind of hard to do it. So we try and fund every legitimate request. The amount is determined first by how much money we have to spend. But we try and, we look at the merit of the request and what they want to do and how it's going to come back to the school, too. We expect that students or faculty that go to some of these things will come back with the information, whether it be a faculty member doing something that's going to affect the classes they teach, or a student who's going to be enriched by attending something, and they will bring it back and share that. We do interview a lot of the students and the faculty members that get grant requests, and those are shown on RBTV many times during telethon.
And do you support anybody that's not a teacher or a student? Do you spend any grant money
Outside?
like giving back to the school at all? Or?
Oh, yeah. If we know that there is something, that's why I said we had a request a few years ago to bring in this speaker for an all-school assembly, and we did that. We had the artist that came recently and spent a week in school, or however was, and
how does that money come into the school? Is it like the boosters where the school procures the speaker and then you give money to the school?
If we knew where it was directed, or something like that usually comes in the form of a request from the school, therefore we give the monies to the school, make it out to them. We ask to see how much it's going to cost, of course, and then we reimburse the school or make it a direct payment, however they wish.
When I first came on the board, I asked for a listing of who made up the foundation, and I got the letterhead that basically said the following people are current and former members of the thing. I mean, who are the current members? Is that going to be something that you're going to list?
That'll be on the, yeah.
Okay. And then how far back do you understand the postage meter usage by the foundation goes?
As
Do you
far-
recall what that, who how that worked?
You know, you might want to ask Gary Prokes about that. I know, you know, we had asked the question, and the school, because the only mailing we really do is at telethon time, when we send out, I'll call them the beg letter, and the school at that time was supporting us by letting us use the postage meter.
And then you mail out all the cards too after the telethon and all the
Yeah,
receipts?
but I think we have, this last time, we may have changed that,
Okay.
because it's something that we brought up, that we felt that the school should not be assuming those costs, and that we should.
And then as far as on the website, you say that your address is here and your phone number is here. Are you considering a post office box or some other type of?
You know, not really, because we too have the box that's in the shelf, on the bottom shelf. And very little comes here except through grant time. The grants come and they're there. The monies that have come in through the telethon, the pledges, usually come here and are put in our box. And Mary Todd Hunter has been kind enough to pick those up for us. And
then I guess I'll ask the insurance question, to be fair. Someone's at the telethon, falls off the stage, hurts their leg. I mean, as a separate corporation, a separate entity, apart from the school, how do you see that working?
we had been getting the same answer that Gary with the boosters had been getting.
And you've been getting that from the business office?
Yes, so, you know, in the last year or two, we haven't pursued it any further, but this might be the time to do it.
And then all your activities, meetings and telethon, everything that you do takes place in this building?
Yeah, except for usually the one social meeting we have a year, which is usually at someone's house.
Okay. I think that gives me a good base of knowledge to go into the discussion later.
Anybody else?
Any other questions?
I hope it does.
I'd like to.
How much of that?
I got a congressional committee here.
How much of that did you know going into the meeting,
Oh,
though?
you did a great job, really.
I'd like to thank.
Didn't answer the question, Chad.
I'd like to thank all the parent groups that came tonight. I definitely owe you all coffee or lunch because I fell back on my promise.
Who's paying?
I'll come out of my personal pocket. But once again, I think it's important that we recognize the contributions we receive from these groups. I thought we had an excellent conversation last week with them, realizing that the new superintendent and Ms. Bosma in her second year, we want to build relationships with them on how they can help support us and we can help support them and move RB forward. And especially during these tough economic times where, you know, I'm saying no to Pam on things that, you know, I consider to be more of a want than a need to run school, and she's able to go to patrons and they can help make those things happen or meet us halfway. You know, Gary's been working with us on a couple occasions talking about the new sign, and that's something that benefits the whole community as well, you know, and for years to come, and all the stuff that they've donated in the foundation. So as the superintendent of Riverside Brookfield High School, I want to say thank you to the time that you volunteer to these organizations and that what you give back to us.
And we, you know, and speaking for myself, and I assume the foundation, we appreciate your interest in our organization and recognizing that we do want to do what's best for the students in the school. And we can only do that if we keep the lines of communication open and answer any questions that any of you may have. I'm in the phone book.
I know some of them have to leave, some of them might stay. Is there any chance, Superintendent Cindy, we could do maybe the policy council?
Superintendent, I
Or,
don't know if that's a motion or a motion.
sorry.
I know that you, if the board has no problem with it, maybe we can shift the policy because we don't want you to share the joy of being here till midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning. So, would that board have any problem with that?
Oh, but can I ask one other question? Somebody mentioned it. Isn't there a fourth group, the music sponsors, that
I think
we
I may
allow
have
some
said music
involvement to?
sponsors.
Would they ask to present, or does somebody know what?
Yeah, the music sponsors last year were a part of that. They would come to the Patrons Council and were kind of under the umbrella of your 501c3, right?
They're
But
considered a standing committee of patrons.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
a standing committee, and so, and I think they come and they make reports at the Patrons Council meetings about their, you know, their activities to support the music programs.
Well, the only reason I'm asking is because of the, you know, thing that we're looking at, that don't, I recall, like, if you make a donation, they also allow you to get into free to some events too, through the music sponsors?
I don't believe so.
No?
I don't believe they
Okay.
do anything like that. They just ask for a donation, and they've been at residency too, meeting people in the summer.
Okay.
And personally, I just wanted to thank the foundation for supporting. I see the kids that coming back after the summer when they've had these enrichment experiences, and, you know, they just blossom from them, and they do share with the other students in class and encourage other students to apply for grants, and the teachers as well. So it's an amazing foundation and does a lot. And the telethon is great fun. I never had that experience before I came here. It might be my
Especially our
next career.
cheerleader.
Yes, they put me in a skip the first year and blessed me by passing me over this year. But
So does the board have any issues if we move to policy? All right, so